I'm Dan Drake. This is Front Up on Visitor Network TV. Our guest today is Pete Howell, who is one of the members of the Seal Abatement Coalition. And it seemed a good time to have him on after the discussions that have gone on in the last couple of weeks. But why don't you start with sort of giving a little bit about your background and why you got involved in the Seal Abatement Coalition?
Well, as you know, Dan, I moved here, now it's been 13 years. And I used to say, oh, Nantucket's a flat, boring island. But, and everybody would take exception to that and look askance. But obviously, one of the things that attracted us, me in particular, was the wonderful fishing we had here.
And you fish all over.
And I fish a lot of places, or have, certainly around the world. And the fishing here has been tremendous. And as you well know, one of the great destinations all up and down the East Coast has historically been Great Point. There are many other wonderful places to fish on Nantucket, but Great Point was always sort of a principal destination. And as you also know, over the years, inevitably our ecosystem changes. There's a particular reason for that, as you know. And at any rate, some years ago, I and many of my angling friends noticed that things were changing, and it was because of the gradual reappearance of gray seals. And I guess in a way, I see it a little bit analogous to climate change. Obviously, this is a very modest comparison. Gray seals are modest. But it's a little like watching the grass grow. If you're not really attuned to what's going on, you don't even notice it happening. The people who are really attuned to what's going on as far as gray seals are concerned are the fishing community. And I'm talking...
just stop you for a minute, if I could. The background essentially is that the gray seal community was pretty well wiped out in the Northwest Atlantic.
Yep.
From the time the Europeans first came to these shores, and what, in 1972 or 3, the Endangered Species Act was passed, and at that point, as I understand it, the last remaining colony of gray seals was on Sable Island, up off Nova Scotia. Is that correct?
Not sure. Certainly, the Sable Island population was the most obvious and conspicuous remnant population. There may have been others around.
But this resurgence of the seals has basically started since the early 70s.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a minor point of correction. It wasn't the Endangered Species, it was the Marine Mammal Protection Act that was passed in 1972. And so it all kind of, the whole discussion really starts with that particular piece of legislation. And let me say right off the bat that there's no question that legislation was appropriate at the time. The problem with so much legislation, as you know, the absence of practical ways to disengage the legislation, if you will, sunset clauses or whatever it is, or just ease of amending or changing the law. So the law has now been in effect for over 40 years. It's been demonstrably successful, at least insofar as gray seals are concerned, in our neighborhood.
But isn't it true elsewhere? I mean, colonies have reappeared.
Yeah, colonies have reappeared, right. And so the question now, it seems to me, and I get back to my analogy, you know, the people who are really tuned into this are the fishing community, and when I say that, I'm very conscious of the fact that that tends to, if not trivialize the issue, at least kind of make it seem less important than it is. And we have been accused many times of, oh, you poor fellows, you come to Nantucket and you're inconvenienced in terms of your recreational fishing because you can't go where you want to go anymore. And the fact is, at least certainly I believe, it goes far beyond just inconvenience to a few recreational fishermen. It extends to the commercial fishermen and the charter boat skippers, all who have been affected. And as you know, you talk to any one of them and you'll get an earful about what the impact of the gray seals has been. So that's sort of the origin of our awareness of the issue, is the fact that we used to go out, there were any number of us, and we'd be at Great Point getting blindsided by the surf coming in and having a wonderful time, and that's all history now.
Is there a record of any kind of seal colony on Great Point in the past?
I believe there is. Again, I'm no expert. My understanding is that there was, prior to the 50s, as you, I think, know, part of the folklore is the bounty that existed, $5 a nose, and people would cut the nose.
There are people around who remember doing it.
Yeah. But it's also part of the folklore. And, and there are those who will say those were the good old days. And we hesitate or hasten to remind people that we don't feel we're just and I'm talking about the Seal Abatement Coalition, a bunch of yahoos who have it in for the seals.
And it's not your objective to kill the seals.
It is not.
Your objective to maybe help them move somewhere else.
Well, people are always asking us, it's an obvious question, what the heck does abatement mean?
Right.
And we choose to define abatement as lessen the impact of. Obviously, you can infer that it means something much more drastic than that, and that, as you point out, that is certainly not our intention. The problem with the legislation is that it is broadly interpreted, and so not only the protections afforded marine mammals in general, gray seals in particular, are really extraordinary. And the current interpretation is that, and the way it's oftentimes described in a lot of the official literature and the animal welfare organizations describe it, anything you do that alters a seal's behavior is technically a violation of the law.
There was an incident out on Matticat Beach this weekend. I don't know if you heard about it.
No.
Where apparently a seal was on the beach sleeping.
Yeah.
And a group of people decided it was in their interest to get the seal back in the water. And I
hope there was no untoward.
Apparently, the seal did not bite anybody. If
well, that's good.
That's the question.
Well,
I don't know what they did, but by the time the team got there, because somebody called the team, the seal was gone.
Well, I had exactly just 2 days ago, in an unusual position out at where we call the Knuckle on the northwest shore of Nantucket, there was a seal hauled out, and I had to give wide berth. And he wasn't about to move, and he was quite relaxed there. And don't normally see seals there, but now we're seeing them, in all kinds of places where we didn't see them before. But the current rule is you may not approach within 150 feet. So when people ask us, well, what do you propose to do? Obviously, first answer is, well, there isn't anything we legally can do right now. All we can do is try to raise public awareness, ask questions about the implications, as you know, the economic, the environmental, public health and safety implications of this rapidly expanding population. I don't think anybody denies that there is a rapidly expanding population. In fact, as you know, we had scientists the other day explaining that not only is it reproduction here, this being now the Muskegon in particular being the largest breeding colony in the eastern United States, but we're also getting immigration from Canada. Not clear why seals are migrating south, but they are. So it's a compounding thing.